So let's get into the real playbook for leading when pressure is high, the rules are changing, and the stakes are real. Please welcome our moderator, Kerry Gumas, and panelists Paul Miller, Christine Shaw, and Tim Hartman. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Everybody revved up?
Hello, Kate. I'm revved up.
So here we are once again at the third annual Revved Up. Thank you, Paul. So Paul had a really interesting time coming down here. Somehow it seems like TSA or airlines or something like that, got in your way. But it reminded me actually that we were having a conversation not too long ago about an event that you were at over in Europe, and some speech that you heard from a pilot or something like that, and you said, "Well, I really changed my whole leadership style."
Yeah, and I'm blaming the TSA situation for my lack of counting how many events I've been to, but it was a 3-hour line at pre-check yesterday at TSA in LaGuardia. And it did remind me, Kerry, you're right, we were at an UFI conference, which is the global association for the event industry, and their keynote speaker was a former EasyJet pilot. And it was kind of one of those things you think, how is this going to work with the actual audience? And her basic premise was that turbulence is where pilots learn, and it's where they experience the most real-time learning environment. And therefore, you as business leaders need to start seeing uncertainty as turbulence, and therefore a platform for learning and growth. I just thought it was brilliant, and just sort of stuck with me.
Because none of you know anything about turbulence, right? I mean, Tim, your market has been...
The government market is so stable and smooth, folks. I mean, it only took 3 seconds for us to mention a government agency on this panel. It's in disruption.
Exactly, right? And Christine, I know you went through some turbulence, right?
Sailing. Yeah. Yes, we have. Yes.
But you dealt with it in a unique way. I thought, as it related to AI adoption in particular. Maybe share a little bit about that with the
Yeah, I
team.
mean, I'm sure like many of you, we rolled out multiple strategies to try to get adoption across AI, and a lot of them were failing, right? So we couldn't get people to really lean in and do it. I thought back to, I did not do this, but a CEO I worked under at Penwell when digital was the big thing, and he stood up at a town hall and said, digitize or die. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that, but we really need to figure out how to get adoption. So it was first important to understand what the holdback was, what the resistance, and the trends that came up were one, fear. Fear is going to replace my job. That's a huge one. Or fear I'll become irrelevant. The second was around training. So it's one thing, as a CEO, you're like, just go do this, but you realize that they really do need a lot of training. And then the other was trust in the data and the information, and trust that the AI was going to be accurate and represent the quality of work that they were putting out. So our new strategy was really to be employee-led. So we put AI in the hands of a lot of employees, and we did some pilot and prove it methodologies, but more importantly at the town hall, rather than stand up and say, digitize or die, we said, this is now part of our DNA, and it needs to be in the DNA of every single employee here at Naylor to go forward. It just is. So we're going to roll out policies, we're going to roll out new tools, we're going to roll out training. And we just did an employee survey, and we've shifted now. We have 73% of our employees actively using it. About 60% are using it on 40% on a 40 to 50 on a daily, and 60% on a weekly basis. So that's a huge step forward. And we have a long way to go in terms of the training and continued, but at least everybody's leaning in now, and we've allowed for some experimental uses of AI, which has been a great.
And we'll talk a little bit about that, but you drew a real sharp line in the sand there, right, when you made that statement at your town hall. And I mean, it strikes me that each of you are approaching this in a slightly different way. I know, Tim, you've referenced the Google benchmarks, as something that has influenced you, and I'm kind of curious about that as well.
Yes, I mean, we have a lot of excitement and interest around artificial intelligence just inherently at GovExec. We've got a number of products that are already far down the road in terms of delivering customer value through direct AI conversations and interfaces. Internally, it's a little bit more of a challenge, some of the things that Christine was talking about in terms of adoption. But we were really gifted this opportunity to work with Google, who's one of our top partners. There's probably the company that uses this the most strategically at this point is Google Public Sector. And they invited us to participate in their own internal training on artificial intelligence and where they were going as a company. So it was just a real opportunity to see how a company that's an AI company at its core now is actually deploying these tools. And what I thought was fascinating was they expect everybody in the company to be developing teams of agents to the point where you as an individual, just an individual contributor, not a manager, you are going to be managing AI agents and giving them reviews, and there are going to be 360 reviews of your agents in the company, so that each person is measured not by just their own personal impact, but by the impact that their agents have made for the company as well. And so that's a real paradigm shift for how an individual contributor, much less a manager who's managing teams of individual contributors who then have their own AI agent teams operate. And so for me, the big takeaway was this is moving much faster than any of us anticipate. These agentic opportunities are huge, not just in terms of marketing and sales, but internal operations and management. We're going to have to manage very differently to capture the possibilities there. The second thing is it's a real pressure on managers and I think CEOs. The speed at which you can get a good recommendation on how to proceed is exponentially faster. And so as a CEO, as a business unit leader, as a manager, it's like a baseball player who, you measure them maybe over 4 or 5 at-bats in a game, and suddenly they get 20 at-bats. The ones that have a high batting average are going to do amazing. The ones that have a poor batting average are going to get spun out of the team much faster. So that's the challenge I think we have from a leadership and management perspective is how do we manage that volume? How do we set expectations for that volume? How do we manage the people to the impact that they create, which is a different impact than what we've seen in the past?
Two things that strike me about that. One is that, if you hear, Google, saying that everyone should be, sort of developing their own sort of superhuman agent and then, reviewing those. And for those of you, in the audience that think, okay, well, that sounds a little like science fiction. I know at our CEO council yesterday, there were a number of people in the room who are already going down that pathway, looking at the org chart, and defining agentic jobs. And then on the subject of measurement, Paul, I know you've got a process now that's established with your private equity sponsors, and that's providing a sort of a different kind of framework and a different kind of discipline, right, for Questex.
Yeah, we have a private equity owner who has been in now for 7 years, and we are often compared with the rest of their portfolio. And the portfolio ranges from kind of gas stations to vets to data-driven businesses to us in the media and events world. And every month now they are looking for the best and the most effective uses of AI or generative AI across each of their organizations, and then cross-sharing. So you get to look at efficiency, which everybody, I think, sort of takes as a first take. And frankly, what's kind of written off now is it saves time, because it saves time is then turned into, but what are you doing with the extra time? Right. And that often is where things, I think, drop, is that people go, well, I just got more time. Mm-hmm. And that's just not going to work as a measurement for what kind of impact is that having.
So what kind of hard metrics? I mean, if I assume, if private equity is measuring it, there's sort of hard numbers there that are
Sure. being
measured.
What revenue is being generated, what leads are being converted, what inbound leads are being converted, how many more calls are you able to make as a salesperson if AI is taking care of qualifying the inbound? If you're not able to make the outbound calls, how does the AI agent make more outbound calls, and how do they turn into revenue? So all the way along the lines, it's sort of metric driven, and I think more revenue generating than cost efficiency generating for us right now.
So I know that you were you sort of planned for this question to be asked, right, about how much revenue are you generating, from AI,
Lots.
right? But tell us.
How much revenue are we generating, Kate? It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And Christine, just following on the story though about the process that you set in motion, because I mean, all kidding aside, Paul's generating that revenue at Questex, but you've also gone down a pathway now where you can see a direct line to revenue as a result of changes that you made.
Revenue enablement, yes. So for us, it's both. It's not just revenue enablement, but it's also around cost efficiency. So we have one of our business units that focuses on job boards, and unless you're living under a rock, you know that the jobs market was very challenging, so revenue was declining about 15% year over year, but it's a quite profitable business. So we had to right-size the sales staff. We removed 4 sellers, and it was roughly $600,000 in costs when you tie in commission, benefits, salary, all of that. And at the same time, of course, I'm like, let's get more revenue, maximize this for profitability. So our marketing team, Taylor, by the way, who is in our organization, she heads up a really bright marketing and the growth team. And they were using Salesforce cadences, and I'm like, we have to go faster. And they were like, well, we can't unless you let us hire. I'm like, well, we can't hire people, so what's the answer? So we did a pilot and prove it, and we are 3 months into that. And what we did was we're using Clay AI stitched together with MailChimp, which now has taken and automated and allowed that team to scale the work that was being done by human and technology much quicker. But what it's doing is it's putting qualified leads now in the hands of far less salespeople. And this month is the first month we're actually going to be flat year over year. So after a decline, and it's not market win or headwinds from the market or market driven, it is efficiencies through using AI to help put the sales people's efforts in the right thing and allowing marketing to use those tools to do that job at scale. So it's been huge. We still have a roadmap to go in terms of where to continue to invest, but now we're working on, okay, how do we deploy this across more layers of the organization when it comes to revenue enablement?
Right. But you've gotten huge savings, just the personnel costs, the headcount savings on the one hand, and then the increase in ultimately sales productivity.
Yeah, and it wasn't, you had asked in the prep, like, what kind of planning and how did we plan? We ripped the Band-Aid off. We just said, these things all have to happen in tandem. And I looked at it and I said, okay, so the worst case is we're still declining, but we have a lot lower costs, and better profitability. The best case is this actually starts to work and we see a lift in revenue, and we're now finally getting to the point where we're seeing stabilization, and we're really looking forward to what's to come on that.
And Tim, it sounds like you've got a transactional clients that you're now turning into subscribers. You're finding new revenue this way, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of different opportunities for us. The first is that we have an intelligence business. It's research and intelligence, and we have a lot of unique data that we've been able to train AI models on. So already we have on our SaaS platform ways of interacting and asking questions around government contracting and government contracts that just give kind of mind-blowing intelligence, and we've been able to monetize that very cleanly. The second piece of it is as the adoption of Claude and OpenAI and all these platforms start to emerge, we've been able to build MCP technologies that are basically like apps on the platform, which allow new customers to engage with us as they're just searching through, hey, how do I get better at government contracting, or I'm asking about a specific contract. They can plug into our, essentially our engine, and they're charged by the drink, really. They're charged based on usage. And so that's a new area of growth for us that is kind of an organic customer acquisition model that we really didn't conceive of 2 or 3 years ago, because we didn't expect this marketplace to evolve in this way.
And out of curiosity, I guess for all three, right? Knowing how your ownership structures work, right? Are you finding that you're able to generate the funds that you need to fund some of these initiatives? Obviously, directly out of your own cash your own cash or your own operating expense, or you're not financing this, obviously. I know probably in all three cases, but how are you sort of carving this out and also dealing with the sort of the short-term trade-off, right? Of maybe I've got to take a little bit of a hit to EBITDA, or in order to get a little bit of a win and start these projects going.
First? Yeah. So for us, we're a little bit backwards, I think, and this is partly why I'm here at this event. We have on our SaaS platform and our research platforms, we had very early adopters in terms of tech strategy. So we've been playing with AI for years and funding it, and Growth Catalyst Partners, who is our financial sponsor, an early investment for us was building the data lakes and building this cross-connectivity of all of our data to enable stuff like this. So we're really fortunate in that we've got it live, generating revenue in our product suite, in our platform. The challenge that we have is it's kind of the cultural challenge and the sales and marketing challenge of how do we then take what is a unique asset that our clients are using and turn it inside out for our own lead generation, our own customer growth, our own insights, and that's where we are today. So looking to talk to some of the vendors here, looking to talk to some of the peers in terms of what they've done in terms of growth hacking with AI.
Paul?
Yeah, I think I would sort of zoom out a little bit, Kerry, on the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I think that this is when you're as old as I am, this is kind of like the print to digital revolution, the
Right.
global financial crisis, the COVID, and now it's AI, which I do agree with everyone.
You forgot fax.
Yeah, it's kind of faster and it's bigger, I think, this time than
Right.
we've experienced before, which is something I think we have to grasp. But on the whole, the learning from the sort of past has been you've got to get at it. You can't wait. There's fear in the organization. There's always fear of change. It's just a human thing. So you've got to really find the people in your organization that want to embrace this. They want to try, get them together, harness that. I don't think it has to be a massively costly exercise, to your point on ownership. We're being encouraged to invest. We're very top-line growth-driven right now in the place we are in our strategic journey. But I don't think this is a trade-off of, hey, we're going to have to spend $10 million here versus $10 million there. So it's something you've just got to, I think the learnings that I've had, at least in my career, are just get on it quickly, harness the people that want to go there, and learn and share as fast as you can.
And Christine, I know you've got your own situation as well.
Yeah, so what we did, we went through a very painful exercise in 2025 of pruning clients that didn't serve us. And that was a tough conversation to have with your investors, to say we have to take a step back to go forward, but it really served us well. And the underlying point there is nobody was handing us a bucket of money to say, go
Right.
do this. So we
Right.
had to self-fund everything we're doing now. So first was clarity on customers with poor margin that were taking a lot of operational time and exhaustion that wasn't serving the ICP and the North Star of what we do. So that was a very difficult exercise, but we did it. And in some cases, thanks to the work of our COO here and her team, we were able to renegotiate with our clients. Second was doing a tech audit and letting go and canceling vendors that no longer, sorry to all the vendors out there, but if they were also not serving what we needed to be doing, we got rid of that or sunsetted that, deprecated, tech stacks that we didn't use. Then that opened up opportunity, and I hate to talk about it in human resource and capital, but also letting go of roles. And so if you think about this, and this really hit me at a conference I was at, a lot of the fears around data, and people say, well, I can't afford a ChatGPT data license or enterprise license, but it's on average of $20 to $40 a month per employee, depending on the size of your organization. If you think about what you can remove from your organization and then what that can do, that's like hiring everybody a full-time assistant in your company. So you have to just look at it from a different lens, but we self-funded everything through hard decisions and evaluation.
So it's so difficult to cover this subject in a 20-minute panel, but each of your businesses has been through the externalities, the changes that have happened. There's sale processes, there's federal government shutdowns, there's ownership changes, there's tariffs, like all the things that are sort of in the macro environment. But but internally, you're providing strong leadership from each of your situations. Just think maybe we could leave the audience, with Paul and Christine and Tim's one line, like true north. Where are we headed, and sort of what guides you? Because you're going through massive change. You're creating changes in your organization. I hear there's success stories, but there's also turnover. That means there's staffing and cultural issues. So what's true north actually?
Can I say 3 things just really quickly? Get your culture right as soon as you can. So make sure that your people are the people you want to be around and work with, because you are going to go through tough times. Control what you can control. Everybody says that, but we get very distracted. I get very distracted sometimes with what's going on in the world, but you can't control much of that. So control what you can control. And the last thing is, and I think it was Jessica who was up here, and I really took that away, what she said, is spend time with your customers. Listen to your customers and spend time with your customers. They will tell you where you need to go if you're listening hard enough.
That's great advice.
Yeah, and another thing that Jessica said was around having a great team. We have a great team of leadership at all levels. So having that to carry out the strategy and the vision is paramount. You can't do it all as an operator. And the customers, it's like, really listen to what the customer ICP is and serve that, make that your North Star, and walk away from what's no longer serving the company. So those are the things we're focused on, so that we can, our true North Star is serving associations, and we have to let go of anything and anyone getting in the way of doing that.
Yeah, I think that, Paul, that was very insightful in terms of the history of print to digital and digital to mobile, and I think we're obviously in one of those big changes in society and how our businesses operate. And the opportunity, I think, when we say, oh, this is an exponential opportunity, we haven't really had the change that is driven, it's so impactful on productivity itself, right? All those changes were impactful to the buyer-seller market and the model of business, but none of them actually got to productivity directly. And so for this, what I think about is what is that exponential benchmark for us? And for us, it's 10x. How do we improve our productivity by 10 times in each of the divisions each function that's working on this? What's the vision for that leader of those businesses to say, here's how my team, I get 10 times the impact for them? And then for our customers, it's got to be at least 10x. If you can prove this type of exponential impact based on what you're providing to them, driven by these productivity tools, imagine the revenue opportunity that we have. So that's my motto, is how do we 10x, how do we get to 10x in each of those realms?
So maybe to sum up and close it out, listen to the customer. Good advice always. That's nothing new, right? 10x. Turbulence is a new norm. Got to learn how to power through it. Great.
Thank you.
Well, look, tremendously successful leaders here, and leading, successful companies at GovExec, at Naylor, and at Questex. Really, the stories that they've got and the successes that they've had, as well as the obstacles they've overcome, far too long, to pack into a 20-minute session. So I just encourage everyone, seek out, Paul and Christine and Tim. Great sources of knowledge and advice, and they're always willing to share. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.